Sages have told us in ancient times that Kleshamulaha Karmashayaha in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, beautifully mentioned. Drishtadrishta Janma Vedaniyaha. The source, the root of suffering is the karma that's been collected. And we live in somewhat of a simulation, a mirage.
Namaste everyone. Welcome to Scope at Parul. I am your host Bhupendra Mandal, and today we have with us Abhigya Anand, who is a child prodigy and a very well-known Vedic astrologer. So today we are going to discuss with him the importance of karma or karmic theory in Vedic Jyotisha. So before we start our conversation, can you just give an intro to our audience about your life, about your education, and your significant predictions and works on astrology?
Perfect. Jai Shri Krishna ji. And it's nice to be here. And Mama Nama Abhigya iti. Name is Abhigya. And I have been into Jyotish Shastra since the age of 11 now. And when I was 10 and a half, I was first introduced to the science because my Sanskrit class was nearby. And it all started with the Gita at the age of 6. So the Bhagavad Gita gave the philosophical foundation, which is absolutely important. I realized as time passed that the sages weren't bluffing when they said that you must first study the Gita and Vedic philosophy before you jump into Jyotish Shastra, because as they say, Gahana Karmano Gatihi, it's a very deep field. Jyotish Shastra is the eyes of the Vedanga itself, the whole Veda Purusha. It's the eye. And hence, it's all started with the Gita. I was homeschooled since the age of 6. I've barely been to school here and there, a few times in Germany, a few times in Australia, a few times in India, but not more than 5 years of schooling at most. And the homeschooling background allowed for me to explore my creative side, to study when I want to play when I want to, and by God's grace, most of the time I used to spend my time reading history of the world. And there's been this intense curiosity since a very young age to understand why certain events take place. That was a question that always kept me awake. Why do certain events take place during certain time frames? Why is there a concentration of violence during certain periods of time in history, and then a gradual reduction in violence for another certain period of time in history? So I always wanted to know that, and Jyotisha gave me a few clues on why, when, and how such events take place. That was very helpful. And at the age of 14, the first breakthrough came once I finished my 4-year study in Jyotish Shastra. I finished the basic courses, Jyotisha Visharada and Jyotisha Vidya Bhushana, from a college called Divya Jyoti College of Jyotisha in Mysore. After that, at the age of 14, when I started to study on my own, I did my own research into these fields. I studied the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra. Since I had a background in Sanskritam, I could understand the text rather better. And also I studied the Brihat Jataka, the Phala Deepika, and even Brihat Samhita, which is one of my favorite texts. It's a huge compendium of beautiful information in Jyotish Shastra, presented in a manner that's very poetic, and at the same time highly informative, brought together from other scriptures. So I was obsessed with that text. There are many rules in that from different sages, including Bhrigu Muni, from Jaimini, from the Yavanas, from so many more which have been compiled together. And I thought, why not test these rules out? So I applied some of these concepts to actual events. And one day, it was in August 2019, and I was sitting on the terrace of my home in Arunachala Kshetra, Tiruvannamalai, and the hill was right in front of me, the glorious Arunachala hill, and I was flipping through the pages of the Panchanga, as we are supposed to do as Jyotishis in the morning, and I noticed a very unique combination. I often recount this since it's a turning point for me in the field of Jyotisha. And this combination was very unique. We had Guru and Shani coming very close to one another from a geocentric perspective. And such a thing, such closeness had not been seen since about 800 years. So it was definitely a monumental event. And whichever way you look at it, all the grahas were coming together. It was technically a kosha conjunction, which Varahamihira has described as Sammoha Koshau Bhayadau Prajana in his text. And I applied some of those principles, which we can delve into later. And I theorized that in 2020, there could be a massive event. It would start somewhere around November 2019, and it would culminate around April 2020. There could be a world war, there could be a pandemic, but something big is going to happen. That was very clear. So I posted a video on YouTube saying severe danger to the world between November 2019 and April 2020. Also predicted that there would be a recession around about the same time frame, around February to April to be precise. And initially, of course, you got a lot of trolls on YouTube. At the time, my audience was also quite limited. And even from that limited audience, they were encouraging people. But for the most part, people were like, don't do fear-mongering. The IMF and the World Bank and other organizations had predicted a fantastic year for 2020. I was probably the only person, or probably one of the very few people who said it's going to be negative or bad in a major way. And it happened eventually. We all know what happened in 2020. And I myself was taken aback when I saw the news around late February 2020 that a pandemic is raging around the globe. And the first case took place in November 2019, exactly when the conjunction was, exactly when Guru entered the sign along with Shani. And all of this motivated me to study it deeper, because this cannot be a coincidence. 2020 was a monumental event. It doesn't happen every 20 years. This is something that hasn't happened for probably centuries. That scale, the whole world getting locked down, and human thinking and perception changing. So I went deeper into the science, and I thank Bhagwan and my parents for that. My parents were very instrumental in not hindering my progress in the science in the early stages. Of course, later on when I was getting obsessed, they were steering me towards other fields so that my progress isn't stunted. But apart from that freedom of homeschooling in the early years helped me a lot in this journey, and I went deeper into Jyotisha. And now it's been 10 years in this field, and I'm trying to share the insights that I somehow glean from, and I share it with my audience on YouTube sometimes on news and media. And my favorite part is when I get to interact with students, especially at educational institutions who think critically, and that really helps me not only hone my skills but also share my insights with someone who might make better use of it. So yeah, that's my background. I also love Sanskritam. I love Ayurveda a lot. Applying the principles of Ayurveda to modern science and making the best of both worlds. That's something I believe in. And I hope to do something for Bharata primarily. That's my primary interest. And I also believe our duty collectively to do something for this great Bhumi, which has provided so much for us and our ancestors. Unfortunately, it has gone down a slippery slope. It's our duty to get it back from wherever it is. And that's my mission, if I must say, in a simple sentence. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the young generation can take pride that somebody who is from Gurukula system has risen and is now a very well-known professional, well-reputed, well-recognized for their work or your work. So on the education part, what was your experience being in Parul University campus, and could you share your thoughts on the campus, on the facilities here, education, students, before we proceed to our discussion on Karma?
Absolutely. I think the university is heading in a great direction. The leadership is excellent. I spoke with several senior members of the university's administrative departments, and they're doing a really good job. It's rare to see people actually giving exposure to students on the spiritual foundations of this country, to keep them rooted in their spiritual identity, so that they can fly across the globe and venture into different fields, but at the same time realize their source, where they come from, and not just geographically, but the thought process, that the Bharatiya thought process is not lost. And that's very nice to see. And secondly, the way that the NEP is being implemented, latest NEP, is excellent. And the teachers are very well learned. I've met a lot of them, and all of them are very driven, motivated. You don't see that very often, and I'm very happy to see that it's happening finally.
See, Thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking your time and coming here for your presence. The faculty, the administration, the students really appreciate your presence here. So coming to our last question, you had written an article on the karmic theory and importance of karmic theory in Jyotisha predictions. Okay. So this question of human suffering that we had talked about just previously, how the human suffering is connected to our karma or the concept of karma, and how this karma is actually connected to the Jyotish Shastra itself. If you can connect the dots for the audience.
Absolutely. So there are two forms of knowledge broadly, Vidya. One is para, which is the knowledge of the absolute truth, which is mostly inaccessible for those who are stuck in the mirage of the material world. And then there's apara, which relates to everything that we study. See, it's stable, the books, the technologies that we use, everything is basically linked to apara. It's the world we live in and the knowledge related to it. Now, the bridge between these two, that's where Jyotisha comes about. It links you from your material world of apara and just points you to para. Obviously, whether you choose to go down that path or not is a different thing. Most of us don't, because we don't realize we are fooling ourselves to be happy within the mirage, which is a rather beautiful but at the same time sad reality, and we choose to stay in this. So Jyotisha leads you there to that level. It is a pratyaksha pramana for karma. We are all told when we are children, if anyone growing up in an Asian country, any country influenced by Buddhism or Sanatana Dharma knows the concept of karma. We are aware that you do something bad, and there is some sort of a record which is kept of your good and bad deeds, and you get to experience that later on, which we call as karma hitting someone back. This is a simple concept we all know about. This is rooted in our shastras, and the great sages who are realized have given us in very clear aphorisms why such things happen. Most of the world, especially people who follow different systems of thought, cannot easily explain human suffering. Some frame it as punishment, divine punishment. Some frame it as a test that God is putting you through. But why would God put one through a test for no reason? Isn't it rather a problematic assumption to make? So based on Vedanta, which is not just dogmatic but something that's experiential, our sages have told us in ancient times that kleshamulaha karmashayah, in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, beautifully mentioned, drishta janma vedaniyah. The source, the root of suffering is the karma that's been collected. And we live in somewhat of a simulation, a mirage. And within this, it's like, think of it like a video game, for example, right? So you do something and there is, you have a causative action and then you have an effect due to that. And you keep collecting this, and it is an endless cycle until you realize that it's actually a game and you need to step out of it. Till then, it's an endless cycle. So the source of your suffering or illusory happiness is basically your own actions. That is what Sanatana Dharma teaches us. And at the end of the day, none of this is actually real. That's the second level. Before we go to the second level, at the primary level, this is a theory. Now, how do you prove this theory? Now, of course, sages have said it, there is pramana. But how do you prove it? You prove it through Jyotisha. There is no other method to prove karma rather than Jyotisha. Take, for example, a major event that was predicted, say 2020. Now, the very fact that we could understand that what happened in 2020 was something that we could have predicted means that it was destined in some manner to take place. Now, if something is destined to take place, why did it actually happen? What's the source? What's the cause? The cause is a collective karma that humans together have been, collecting, which is snowballed enough to happen during that time frame. And all of it was just simply destined to happen. And that's how Jyotisha proves the theory of karma. There's no other system of thought or science that can prove the existence of karma except Jyotisha. So that's why protecting the science of Jyotisha and growing it is very important. Otherwise, the whole theory of karma as such cannot be proven. So that's the monumental position of Jyotisha.
Yes, so because I asked you the question primarily because a lot of people who practice Jyotish or who also use Jyotish Upaya to actually, like if they have any problem with their charts, but they don't realize that their suffering, their good suffering or bad suffering, it is because of their karma which is accumulated over generations, over janmas, punarjanmas. So, and that is something which people don't, like a lot of people will be asking questions, the same thing you are asking, why I am suffering, why the other person is not suffering. It is because of the karmic principles, the karmic perspective is there. So, that is something which is important that I think people need to understand. If you go to a Jyotish Shastri who is giving you remedies, upayas, ask them questions. Okay, why I am suffering? What are the theoretical aspects of which I am suffering this, or you are giving me a remedy? Because the karmic principle also is applied when you are talking, when they give you upaya. And it's also part of Jyotisha, which people don't explain a lot. So that's why I wanted you to, because you're a practitioner, to actually explain to the audience that they also need to understand this. So with that, we'll end our conversations. It was really interesting, and we'll also put the link of the article on the video that people can read. And if you last word before we end our session for
Absolutely. So yes, you very rightly mentioned the importance of understanding the source of suffering, klesha mulaha karmashayah. Understanding that is absolutely important. Te hlada paritapa phalaha punya punya hetuvat, as they say. So you basically suffer or enjoy because of your punya or apunya karma, your meritorious or problematic karma that you do, something that harms others. So that must be understood. The very purpose of being a Jyotishi is to help society understand that their actions have consequences, even if the law doesn't punish them, even if their family doesn't punish them. If they do something negative, it actually does have a consequence, not only for themselves, for the whole of society. So they must understand and be conscious of their actions. That's what makes us different from animals, right? We are conscious of our actions. We know that there is a future. We know that there is a consequence. So that's very important. That the whole role of Jyotishis in society is to point that out and to teach karma. Instead of that, today we see a lot of scams in the name of Jyotisha. That must be completely stopped. We are working towards that as well, to educate Jyotishis about the philosophy before they enter into the practical reality. And upayas as such, again, are very helpful. There are only 4 forms of upayas that must be prescribed here in this yuga: vrata, dana, japa, and dhyana. Vrata is austerity. Dana is giving that which is not required. Don't keep holding every little thing. Of course, enjoy your life. As Adi Shankaracharya in the Bhaja Govindam has mentioned, vittam tena vinodaya chittam, that money that you have earned through your good deeds and through something that's not harming others, utilize it for the benefit of yourself and your society. It's okay. But do not harm people. That's at least the basic level. That's the bare minimum. And give something from time to time, a significant percentage of what you have accumulated, and gradually develop vairagya so you reach the Supreme Being. So that's what a Jyotishi must do. When someone comes to you for advice, tell them what they can do to gradually develop vairagya, a little bit at least, of course, and also give away something. And also dhyana, deep meditation. Vrata is austerity, voluntarily putting oneself through a little bit of suffering for a higher purpose, not just useless suffering. We're not asking you to suffer for no reason. Something that is for a higher purpose. Say fasting, getting rid of something, reducing your footprint on the earth, and doing something that actually helps your mental health and physical health. Fasting is an excellent thing. So anyone listening to this podcast today, just find out your birth tithi, be it a Paurnami, an Amavasya, a Chaturthi, and just pick that day every month and keep fasting on that day. And after 3 or 6 months, and just see how your mental health is, how your physical health is, you'll think more clearly, and set aside half an hour in the morning and half an hour in the evening for meditation on the days of fasting. And after the day of fasting is completed, the next day in the morning, just go to a nearby animal shelter and feed as many animals as you can, or get them some medicines, do something good for society, or maybe, donate books or things for underprivileged kids who are studying. Do something good after your fasting is done. So these are the actual pariharans, but unfortunately is devolved into something else. Let's bring it back. And that's on the basic level. On a higher level, as a society, the more good karma we do, the better it is going to be for our entire nation, for our entire Bhumi Mata. The whole earth will be benefited by it. So yes, so it was a good question, and thank you very much for listening to us today. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Ram. So we end our session for today. We'll again see you on next session. Namaste.